When you hear the name Juanita Bynum, you might immediately think of her fiery preaching, her powerful worship songs, or her boldness in addressing sensitive issues that many would shy away from. But behind the pulpit, beyond the stages, and outside the spotlight lies a story so raw, so human, and so complex that after hearing it, you may never look at her the same way again. Juanita Bynum wasn't born into wealth or privilege. She came into this world on January 16, 1959, in Chicago, Illinois, as one of 7 children in her family. From an early age, Juanita displayed an unusual passion for the things of God. Her parents noticed her gift when she would line up dolls, teddy bears, or even her siblings, and preach to them like a miniature pastor. But the road to becoming one of the most recognized evangelists in the world was anything but smooth. Juanita's early years were filled with challenges that would later shape the raw power behind her ministry. She grew up in a strict church environment, where holiness was emphasized and spiritual discipline was expected. But even as she followed the ways of the church, her life outside it was marked with struggles many in the congregation never knew about. Pause, gentle background music. In her teenage years, Juanita had dreams beyond preaching. She wanted to act, to dance, to make a name for herself in the arts. And for a while, she pursued those ambitions. But every time she tried to run from the call of God, she felt an irresistible pull dragging her back. By her early 20s, she had surrendered fully to ministry. She started small, leading Bible studies, prayer meetings, and women's groups. But soon her reputation for prophetic insight and unshakable boldness began to spread. The breakthrough came when Bishop T.D. Jakes invited her to speak at his famous Woman Thou Art Loosed conference. Her fiery message, "No More Sheets," instantly resonated with thousands of women worldwide. In that sermon, Juanita bared her soul, confessing her personal struggles with broken relationships, shame, and mistakes of her past. It wasn't a polished, perfect preacher talking. It was a wounded woman, healed by grace, standing boldly before the world. That transparency struck a chord. Women wept, men listened in awe, and churches across America began inviting her. Overnight, Juanita Bynum was no longer just another preacher. She became a movement. Her ministry grew to massive proportions. She authored best-selling books, recorded gospel albums, and filled arenas with people hungry to hear her message. Her ability to combine preaching with storytelling, singing, and prophecy made her one of the most influential female voices in the church. But as the spotlight grew brighter, so did the shadows. While the world celebrated her ministry, few realized the private battles she was fighting. From abusive relationships to public scandals, Juanita's life would soon become a storm played out on the stage of public opinion. And it was in those storms that the world saw the vulnerable side of a woman they thought they fully knew. Transition, suspenseful music. What happened next would shake the foundations of her ministry, her personal life, and her reputation. And it is these hidden chapters of Juanita Bynum's life that will forever change the way you see her. Opening scene, narrator with a heavy tone. At the height of her ministry, when Juanita Bynum seemed untouchable, her personal life unraveled before the eyes of the world. Her marriage to Bishop Thomas Weeks III became the centerpiece of a very public controversy. At first, their union looked like a power couple destined for greatness. Together, they appeared unstoppable, hosting conferences, leading churches, and ministering to thousands. But behind the scenes, cracks were forming. In 2007, the world was stunned when reports emerged that Juanita had been physically assaulted by her then-husband in a hotel parking lot. The shocking incident made national headlines, leaving many in disbelief. How could a woman who preached so passionately about healing and deliverance find herself a victim of such violence? The church world erupted. Some supported her, standing with her in prayer and compassion. Others criticized her, saying she should have kept the matter private. For Juanita, the pain was more than physical. It was emotional, spiritual, and deeply humiliating. In her own words, she admitted that this was one of the darkest seasons of her life. She had to rebuild, not just her ministry, but her identity. For many women around the world, her vulnerability became a mirror of their own struggles. They saw in her not just a preacher, but a survivor. Pause, softer background music. But the challenges didn't stop there. As Juanita continued her ministry, critics began targeting her teachings, her lifestyle, and even her finances. From her lavish conference productions to her sometimes controversial statements, the media and church leaders alike often scrutinized her. Some claimed she was too bold. Others said she was too transparent. Yet, through it all, Juanita never stopped preaching. If anything, the trials seemed to fuel her fire. Over time, Juanita began to emphasize restoration in her ministry. She became an advocate for women trapped in abusive relationships, sharing her story as a testimony of God's healing power. Her conferences transformed from being only about preaching to also offering counseling, empowerment, and practical support. Despite the scandals and criticism, Juanita Bynum never disappeared. In fact, her story made her more relatable. She was no longer just the powerful voice behind "No More Sheets." She became a living testimony that even broken vessels can still pour out oil. Closing reflections. So, when you look at Juanita Bynum, you may see a preacher, a singer, an author, or even a controversial figure. But if you look deeper, you'll see something far greater, a woman who has walked through fire and come out refined. Her story is not one of perfection, but of perseverance. Not of flawless victories, but of messy, painful battles that led to redemption. And that is why, after knowing her journey, the rise, the fall, the storms, and the recovery, you will never look at Juanita Bynum the same way again. Outro, inspiring music fades in. Because sometimes, the greatest testimony is not in what we preach from the pulpit, but in how we survive when life tries to silence us. And Juanita Bynum's life, with all its ups and downs, is proof that God can use even the most broken chapters to write the most powerful stories.